talk to Panos Moumtzis. He's the UN's Regional Humanitarian Coordinator for the Syria crisis. Panos, thanks a lot for talking to us this afternoon. These people who are fleeing Baghuz, where are they going?
These people are leaving from the last bastion of the ISIL-held area. They're going north to a camp called Al-Hol. This is a camp for internally displaced people, which is absolutely over-congested, more than 40,000 people already there. They're taken to a location where there could be humanitarian assistance, food, medical supplies provided to them, given the desperate state where they come out.
Well, who's looking after them once they get to this camp? Who's feeding them? Who's giving them medical help?
Well, there's a number of both United Nations and non-governmental humanitarian organizations, and we have mounted quite a substantial humanitarian assistance program to civilians who are fleeing this desperate situation. I mean, altogether in Syria, there's more than 6 million people internally displaced. Of course, the ones who are fleeing right now are coming out with quite significant needs in terms of assistance. But our biggest concern is really the protection of civilians. In Baghuz itself, at this moment, it's a conflict situation. So every effort must be made for civilians to be protected. And of course, the vulnerables within this group, you have children, you have women, you have elderly, you have people with particular needs.
And are they being allowed out?
They are. They come out. There is a screening that is done by the local authorities in terms of separating possible fighters from civilians. And the civilians continue their path. It's slow. We would have liked it to be faster, but they're coming out from an extraordinary situation. And there is assistance on the other end. But of course, the journey is quite long where they are and quite hard for a lot of vulnerables. We've actually lost a number of children in the last few weeks due to this long, slow process of taking them to the other end, which we would have liked to have avoided.
So who's in charge of that screening? I mean, this is Syria. Is it the Syrians? And who is guarding the civilians at the camp?
So this is all a non-government control area in the northeast part of Syria. So the government of Syria is not there. The authorities on the ground is the SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces. And they are the ones, I understand, that they do the screening. We're not involved in that. Our work, purely humanitarian, is once the people arrive, and on the road, of course, to be able to provide everything we can to help their basic needs in this extreme situation.
Who's funding all of this, Panos?
Funding is short, so obviously additional funding is needed. We're at the beginning of the year, and we are desperately in need of everything, really, to make ends meet to these people who are coming out with nothing but the clothes they're wearing.
So, Panos, where are these people from? You say they go through a screening process. Let's not talk about the fighters. Let's talk about the people who are going to this refugee camp, the women and the children predominantly. Where are they from, and how are you trying to figure out where they're from and what to do with them?
So at this point, I think the first priority is just to stabilize the situation, is to be able to provide life-saving assistance. We really don't know. We don't have information as to where these people were from. There has been, as the caliphate shifted, it appears that people have shifted with them and have moved to this last location, which seems to be quite over-congested. So the first step is to bring them really to a safe location, to a place where they could be given a shelter, food, medical supplies, water, look in particular after the children, the vulnerable, the special needs. We haven't really got into where would these people want to go eventually. What is really important is that the freedom of movement is respected, that people are allowed to go to wherever really they're able to. What is more complicated with this group is, of course, the foreign nationals, the fact that we also have a number of women, thousands of children that are actually caught up in the situation with foreign nationalities or origin. And of course, this is a tragic situation because these children do have a father, a mother, and a nationality, and they're caught up in the impossible situation. And, you know, a 7-year-old boy or a girl is a 7-year-old. They should be given every assistance and chance in life to succeed in the future.
Panos, what is the danger here that what is meant to be a temporary shelter for these people could become where they end up living, and we end up with a situation like the Kakuma camp in East Africa, which has been there since 1969?
Well, I mean, there is more than 6 million internally displaced people in Syria, more than 5.5 million refugees in neighboring countries. So almost 12 million people who have fled their homes. As more and more peace and stability returns to Syria, of course, some of these people may opt on their own to go back to their home. For us, if this takes place, what's important is that it's done in safety and dignity, and it's a voluntary move. As United Nations, we're not promoting or facilitating the return at this point because the conditions are not right. All these millions of internally displaced still remain. Having said that, in 2018, we had more than 1.5 million internally displaced that went back. So for these people who just fled Baghum, I think the first thing they would want is to get some peace and rest where they arrived. And then I think with time, we'll have to see what is a durable solution for them, a durable solution that has to be really quite creative to find for them, including for the women, the children, the foreign nationals, and of course the Syrians, who themselves will have to decide what to do and where they want to go next.
Okay. Panos Moumtzis, the UN's Regional Humanitarian Coordinator for the Syria crisis. Thanks for talking to us, Panos.
Thank you.